Oh, that one's so good. It's Bizarro Spock.
Bizarro Spock? You
Mirror Spock, Rob.
Sorry.
This whole episode is mirrored.
Welcome to Worse Than the Borg, the Star Trek podcast for everyone. Each week, we unpack new episodes of Star Trek with Star Trek fans, new and old. We also showcase and raise funds for causes near and dear to us in the name of solidarity, reconciliation, and justice. I am your captain, Shane Holland, and I'm here with my number one, Ron Sly. Hey, Ron.
Hello, Captain.
And our chief engineer, Ravi. What's up, Ravi?
Hi, Shane. How are you?
I'm great. I'm dismayed that you called it Bizarro Spock and not Mirror Spock, but we'll get there. We are here to talk about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery, and I am super excited to welcome aboard this week's special guest, Ambassador Stephanie Braithwaite.
Hey! Oh, Shane froze. This is going to have to be a...
I think we should keep it. Shane's off.
I froze. Oh. Oh my gosh, how dare you? Okay, fine. Collectively, we're worse than the Borg, especially me tonight. Ron, would you be able to lead us off with our commitment to reconciliation?
Yes, Captain. This mission log is being recorded on Treaty 13 land, and the participants are committed to reconciliation here on Earth. We believe the United Federation of Planets would fully support the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. All tuned-in Terrans are encouraged to participate in the direct action discussed later in this log.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. We are bringing this episode to you a few days late. I am one glass of wine in because we are recording a few hours after we normally record, and I am talking to you from the set of Star Trek Generations, one of my favorite Star Trek films. But before we move on to my Star Trek love, I want to know, Steph, what is your relationship with Star Trek? Like, how did it all begin for you?
Okay, well, how it all began was, remember Reading Rainbow? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I started with Geordi
Oh my
on Reading
gosh.
Rainbow, and I just followed him from Reading Rainbow all the way over to Star Trek TNG. So TNG is my bae, and I don't know, like, I feel like you're all real hardcore into all the Star Treks, and I am into TNG.
That's completely valid.
That is valid, and that is so common. I mean, like, I feel like a lot of people feel the same way about Star Trek, is that they have their one favorite that they could watch over and over, and to hell with the rest of them. But I was going to save this for a really special time, and I think this is it. So talk amongst yourself for one moment.
What?
Folks, this is unscripted.
This is unscripted.
I love this.
If you needed proof that this is drama-prone, reality podcast, whatever, this is unscripted. What is he doing?
This is one of my most treasured gifts that was ever given to me by a dear friend.
Yeah.
Oh!
What?
Oh my gosh!
Come on.
We are dealing with a signed Levar Burton, Geordi LaForge portrait. that
Peace
lives-
to
Wow.
you, it says.
Oh,
Peace to you.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Jane
Thanks,
wins.
LeVar.
Wow.
Look at that.
Yeah, so I really feel you on the LeVar thing. He was my entry too, because I also loved Reading Rainbow. And I totally understand being such a huge fan of Just the Next Generation. I think it is certainly still rewatchable. I mean, certain episodes haven't aged as well, but it's such a fun series. And yeah, and if you are if you are coming into this episode of Star Trek Discovery for the first time, wow.
There's a lot.
I'm not. Okay. Let me
Oh.
I'm not. Okay.
Okay.
I watched Picard because Picard, and
Of course.
mm,
What did you think? Because we have mixed feelings in.
it was my least favorite episodes of TNG in a series. Let's go back to the vineyard, and it's like Picard's at his vineyard, and somehow he's with a man who's French, and I just found that so boring, and so he didn't have the same charisma that he had. Like, he needed the whole crew and the whole setup. It just felt it felt like a nostalgia tour that was like just kind of sad.
Well, I think that's totally valid criticism. I enjoyed a lot of it for its kind of spin on the Picard character, but I will be the first to admit that the writing is, maybe not quite up to par with
It's awful.
some of the better
It's
Star
friggin'
Trek.
awful.
Ravi is like bursting at the seams.
It is so bad. But you know what? This is not a Star Trek Picard podcast because we can fill so many. Steph, let's connect. I mean, let's figure this out. I think there's an entire episode about how shitty that series is, but it's not this one. But oh my God, it's so bad. It's so bad. Nothing's explained. There's no explanation.
I'll be showing up
no
next
motivation.
season for Jerry Ryan.
I'm getting worked up. I need to stop. I'm with you. I am here for that.
All right, let's pivot and talk a little bit about some Star Trek news, because I think that will bring us all down a little bit. Yes. Okay. On December 12th, Stacey Abrams and a bunch of cast members from nearly every Star Trek franchise came together in an event called Star Trek: The Next Election in support of John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock for their respective races for Georgia's Senate seats. Pretty awesome. I think they raised a ton of money, of course. And obviously, these are really important races in the US elections, because if these two folks win their respective races, then the Democrats will have control of the Senate. And I mean, these are two progressive voices, one more than the other. Well, we can save that for another conversation. But I mean, this is great news. And Stacey Abrams is one of the biggest Star Trek fans in politics, and she is very open about that. I think she was on Stephen Colbert this week talking about Star Trek.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, talk about heroes. Yeah, we love Stacey.
More now.
Right? As if you couldn't love her anymore. She is also a Trekkie. Also, Lower Decks showrunner Mike McMahon confirmed that Lower Decks Season 2 is moving along and should be here somewhere 2021. And David Cronenberg... What? Wait, do we not love Star Trek Lower Decks? No, oh no. Did I forget?
Not at all.
Our opinions about parallel Star Treks might diverge at this point. It was nice while it lasted.
Oh, I can't believe you don't love Lower Decks.
It's based on a TNG concept.
It is.
I'm beginning to dig this. Steph, you are a very specific taste for Star Trek.
Just wait. I cannot wait to get to Discovery, because the word that Steph used for it that I immediately was like, we gotta have Steph on the podcast, was Discovery is cheesy. That was the feedback.
This is gonna be good. I like this.
The last thing I have in Star Trek news is David Cronenberg revealed that he's going to be involved in Discovery Season 4. He told Variety, "I'm cheap and I'm available. I live in Toronto. It's being shot in Toronto. I think that's my main qualification." And
I love that, man. That's
10 points. 10 points.
I just want to put it out there. I live in Toronto. I would work
so cheap.
free. I'm so cheap that I would pay to be on the show. So what are you doing? Get me on the show.
Also, David Cronenberg, if you're listening to this episode, we would like you as a guest. Please reach out to us on Twitter. We are the foremost Toronto-based Star Trek podcast.
As far as I know.
Universe.
As far as I know, yeah.
I'm just saying.
I really hope this means we get a David Cronenberg directed episode of Star Trek. I think that would.
This could have been one. Ravi, you mentioned that you had some Star Trek news.
I didn't. I tried to find it. So for our listeners, I go through my life and I try to bookmark as prudently as possible for when Shane points to me and be like, you talk about Star Trek news. And I've been trying and it just hasn't happened in the last 2 weeks. So I apologize. I might have let out, but I actually checked my bookmarks while we were doing the lead up to this recording and I couldn't find any. But no news is good news.
Star Trek news. Do you want Star Trek news from me?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Okay. It's really only relevant to my friend, but one of my friends recently decided to start watching TNG because she had actually been turned off because we had a common friend in high school who was really into X-Files and TNG and other sci-fi-esque type shows. And she basically, you know, when you have a thing in high school and that's your thing and it can only be that, and that's she was the only person that could like those things. So my friend was like, I don't like it. But because I've talked about TNG so much, my friend decided I'm going to start watching it. And she called me the other day and was like, so Tasha Yar, she dies in the first season? So that was news for her. Yeah.
I mean, that was a groundbreaking TV move at the time. They didn't never do that. Although I worry for your friend in season 1 of TNG.
Ooh, yeah.
Why?
It's
perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Ravi is
love
messaging the chat.
That's one of my favorite Star Trek episodes.
Which one?
The Naked Now, the second episode,
yeah.
Which is basically a ripoff of the second episode of the original. Anyways,
cringy.
Ravi, you found your news.
I found it, and it was so unspectacular that's why I didn't remember it. It's that some researchers at the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory have discovered something that is reminiscent of a tricorder, and it's a DNA sequencer that plugs into your iPhone. Now, I just need to say this. I think that this is we think this is a news story, but we need to apply a pop culture reference or like a sci-fi reference to make sense of this. I think this is a stretch, but I found it just for what it's worth. I do bookmark these things, Shane, but I failed this time. So anyway, some researchers have plugged in their existing thing and put the Star Trek label on it. Good for you for using scientific discoveries and trying to get them out to the masses using pop culture references, but I think that's about as far as it goes. Oops.
I mean, I love it. It's it's what we've seen so much of in all of the medical stuff happening this season on Discovery.
Oh, yeah.
And their new comm badges showing everything about, it works. I'll allow it.
Okay.
After the episode discussion, be sure to help support this week's direct action. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please remember to like and subscribe, write us a positive review, and most importantly, tell your Trekkie friends about us. Now, let's take a very quick break, and we'll return with our breakdown of the latest episode of Discovery. Welcome back. This week, we're discussing Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 9, Terra Firma, Part 1. It was directed by Omar Mata, with a teleplay by Alan McElroy, and story by Bo-Yeon Kim, Erica Lippold, and Alan McElroy. You know, I always get a little nervous when I have to say a lot of names off the top. Avi, can you tell us what happened in this crazy episode of Star Trek Discovery?
I feel your pain. I'm going to pronounce a bunch of stuff this time. And also there are spoilers ahead. Let's get into it. Speaking of which, it wasn't a name, it was just episode. In this episode, Emperor Philippa Jojo of the Terran Empire is dying. The effects of time travel and universe hopping are too much for the humanoid bodies to handle. So says the mysterious Starfleet Dr. Kovic, played by David Cronenberg. Saru is given an opportunity by Admiral Vance to take Discovery to the Galactic Rim to save his crew member's life. After the sphere data uncovers a slim chance for survival from the planet Dennis V. There, Burnham and Giorgio find a being named Carl and discover a strange door, which Michael says she cannot detect with any of her equipment. Giorgio is told by Carl, that by tomorrow she'll be dead, and that her only chance of salvation lies behind the doorway.
I just so we're only halfway through the episode. I write this for Ravi to say, and I usually put in a little bit of pronunciation of some of the harder names. I really, really, really considered putting in a pronunciation after Carl, like Carl. But I thought when I wrote that, and I wrote a little explanation saying, "This is just for you, Ravi." And I saw it in the script, I was like, this takes up way too much space, and Ravi is going to have a real hard time skipping over this. So I deleted it, but I figured I would save it for this.
That's very charitable. That's very charitable. I don't know if we're editing this out or keeping it, but we're going for it. It's a holiday episode. We're doing everything. All right. Michael convinces her that she could stay here and become a footnote in a medical journal, or go through the door into the unknown and take control of her fate. Giorgio steps through the doorway and is immediately on board the ISS Discovery in the Mirror Universe. She has returned to the day that she uncovered the attempted coup by Burnham and Lorca hours before she had Burnham executed. However, it appears that her time in the Prime Universe has affected Philippa. She notices the Kelpian slave she once gifted to Michael is in fact Mir Saru, and uncharacteristically saves his life when given the opportunity. Burnham orchestrates an assassination attempt during the christening of the ISS Charon, using Paul Stamets to sneak up behind Philippa and stab her. Giorgio, fully aware of this plot, murders Stamets in front of the crew during the presentation. Following the incident on the shuttle bay, Giorgio has Michael captured into the corridor and changes history by choosing to spare her life. And that is a very butchered up episode recap in just over a minute. Back to you, Shane.
I mean, so much happened. I don't even know where to begin.
Can I say one thing?
I don't know where to begin. I guess, please.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I interrupted, but I just wanted to say, whenever I see a Star Trek and it's a two-parter, I'm like, I might as well skip to the second part.
Oh. Throwing down.
I said it.
Wow.
Oh.
But you must love the best of both worlds. That is a part 1 and a part 2.
Yeah, I do.
Little bit of room in your heart for cliffhangers, for season cliffhangers.
It's the setup. It's always the setup. It's the setup. They're like, we're setting everything up. We're setting everything up. I was like, I want to be on the part 2 of the podcast.
I mean, it's a valid point, because what was this episode about? One piece of information. Burnham lives in the Mirror Universe.
I guess so, yeah.
I am enough of a Michelle Yeoh fan that I am super happy that the labeling her a special guest star every week has been a complete joke, because she is clearly in every episode and a star.
She's a star.
We got so much. I thought it was interesting. The writing was like, for her, when she was so stressed, her like wit disappeared and she was just mean.
Yeah.
And it was
very relatable. Yeah. I guess, yeah, let's just talk about Giorgio. This week was a little bit... So it starts off where everyone is very generous, considering how awful Giorgio has been to them this entire time. Like, she has been undermining every decision that Saru has made. She has been calling out Tilly on her lack of leadership skills, being given this promotion. She has no interest in showing affection towards Michael Burnham. And then all of a sudden, they're in the transporter room and everyone's like, I learned so much from you.
Yeah.
How did you learn anything from her? She was antagonizing you.
Yeah.
I've really been enjoying this season so far, and they've built up a ton of goodwill with us, and they burned through it in this episode. Like, if the next episode of Terra Firma is not stellar, this will downgrade this season from an A to a B for me.
Ooh.
So wait,
am I wrong?
We breezed over something.
Does anyone...
Did you folks not like this episode? I kind of like this episode.
I kind of like this episode too.
Here's what I liked about this episode. The costumes were banging.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
The makeup in this episode was so good. Owo's blue eyeliner literally knocked me onto the
Seriously. Gorgeous. Gorgeous.
When Owo and Burnham face off at the end and they just look at each other like
The looks.
Oh
so
my
good
God.
looks. Especially black women and their looks. And I'm like, yes, hunty.
Yes.
Yes.
You don't even have to say anything to each other. Yes, it's perfect.
So wait a second. So costumes aside, Shane, what is it that you didn't like about this episode? I thought this was a great episode, but I don't know.
I just think that the setup felt so rushed. That there were so many, like the first half of the episode, it was like they were just catching us up on everything that's happened so far. This is where everyone's at. And then you lurch to the side into the mirror universe, and it feels like another half an episode about catching up. It's kind of exactly, Steph, what you were saying is like, you can tell this is a part one of a part two. Usually these things are great on their own. I was really shocked that this all felt like a setup.
Yeah. I hear you. I think so I know I said, oh, the show, the cheese, right? But in a certain way, the whole Roman kind of teleplay thing that happened at the end of it was cheese in a way that I could totally relate to as a TNG fan. I was like, yeah, this feels like a TNG kind of a allegorical, TV show within a TV show kind of a deal, and that I did enjoy that.
My notes are filled with like, this is very TNG TOS, like Carl, like the totally like random dude that seems to know everything, the story in a story, and all of the symbolism. I like this episode just for the art of it. The costume design was on point. The makeup was on point. Like watching Sonequa Martin Green and Michelle Yeoh like just get to play. Like Sonequa Martin Green was like so perfectly over the top in her like innocent baby doll, evil madness, like
evil baby doll. That's exactly what it was.
Like she had these
that she does where like she's just like, I'm mad now.
Unhinged.
Yes, excellent.
Loved it. Okay, yeah. Sonequa Martin Green having a blast in this episode. You can feel it. It really, really comes through the screen. And definitely her and Michelle Yeoh are the best parts of, this series in general, but particularly this episode. They just both brought it. Ravi, I know you have something to say, but I just want to go back to Carl for a quick second. Either his name is spelled with a Q, or which I would love. I would be okay with that. Or this is some like guardian at the city on the edge of forever, which is what I really wanted the planet to be when they landed on it. But I'm going to go back to Ravi. What did you have to say about all of this?
You stole the words right out of my mouth. I was like, I could live with more Carl in my life. I work with a Carl, so that's also true too. There, but it's also like I could live with a Q character in this. Like they're not tapping into that nearly as much as they could in the franchise. And maybe it's good that they play on the conservative edge of that. Like, but I could live with more of this Q character, like a weird omnipresent bowler hat kind of newspaper reading version of Q would actually be a really fun thing for them to do. Like he's kind of like a little plain, but also that's what makes it so weird. I actually like that quite a bit. I'm into this.
Yeah, it's growing on me the more we talk about it, I think.
Me too, a little bit.
Yeah, like also when they landed in that area and they're like, this wasteland, and I was like, yeah, that's just Ontario and winter.
They saw wasteland. I was like, that's beautiful. Where can I hike?
And it was a really clever callback to season 1, episode 1, where Giorgio and Burnham are marching through the desert on the exact opposite direction and angle, and that would being a hot desert. And here we are going back up the screen in a snow desert. I thought, you know, they're putting a lot of thought into it, and I appreciate that. So, you know, like plot wise, was it a bit slow? Yes, but the art is still there, which I super appreciated.
Where were we? What on earth were we talking about?
I know, but what we're talking about now is that you're being replaced with LeVar Burton as a screenshot on YouTube. If you're not following us on YouTube, you're missing out.
Yes, this is the voice of LeVar Burton as told by Shane Holland coming to you live. So, yes, unfortunately, my computer is not working with me tonight, but that's all right. We are here to talk about Star Trek Discovery, and I guess you can just say this is the mirror version of myself from this point going forward.
If the mirror version of you is Geordie LaForge, then we have an evil person in our midst.
I have never denied that. So,
Plot twist.
All right, I'll keep the conversation going with our weekly shout out to Doug Jones's acting under an inch of prosthetic. We had the subplot in this episode where he sees the video of, the hologram of another Kelpian, and he's obviously the only one that he knows in the future. And I just always appreciate how he manages to make plastic look like it has feelings.
You are so correct. I mean, Doug Jones is doing such a fantastic job. Even, I mean, going back to his very submissive, quote unquote, roots in that scene, it was so great. I had forgotten how far the character of Saru had come. I really loved Doug Jones in this episode. Wow, I've really changed my opinion on this episode while we've been talking about it. It was actually really fun. I mean, I thought it was fun when we were watching it, but I was kind of like, what am I watching? But now as we're talking about it, I'm like, you know, this is kind of the fun that this season needed. It was all really bogged down in, we've got to save the day. We've got to bring the gang back together. We've got to worry about our PTSD. This was a nice break from reality.
I just wanted to say, like, going back to Saru, that I love Saru. And in preparation for this podcast, I actually delved a little deeper into Saru because I always loved when he walked into or out of a room and like how his arms swayed. And so I was like, what's going on with this? Who is this character actor? And then I was like, oh, he's just been in every single movie. And so I did my own research and I was like, what? This person is amazing. Like, the walk is always something that, like, whenever there's a scene in Discovery and he walks, I'm like,
my claim to fame this week is that I watched Pose The Prom with Nicole Kidman.
Oh, yes, me too.
And she, at the beginning of the movie, does a very close facsimile to that walk. And I tweeted out that she better be paying Doug Jones some royalties. And Doug Jones liked my tweet.
Yes.
Okay, that is every episode. But Doug Jones, if you're listening, we would love the podcast. Please reach out.
You're welcome on the show anytime.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
That's
cool.
2 for 2. So you reached out to Doug, I reached out to Ian Alexander. They both liked our tweets. You know, we're really going places, folks.
Should I join Twitter?
The hesitation is the answer that you needed.
If you want to doom scroll your way through 2021, sure, yeah.
That's what Instagram is for.
But Doug Jones might interact with you. That's the payoff.
There you go.
Well, we've regularly shouted out Doug Jones because I think it's not only acting through plastic, which is indeed a huge thing that he's doing, and like it's that there's so much to this story, so much to this franchise, to this series, 3 seasons, where he's had to kind of rise to a new level and redefine his character, and he's just able to do it. He's just like, yeah, no problem. You thought I peaked. I didn't. It's so impressive. And actually, that's the thing that I like about this episode is it provides some conclusion or context to what's happening to Michelle Yeoh's character, to Philippa Jojo, is that there's something going on. And I guess that's my thing is if it weren't for this episode, I'd really feel like her character is lost. and it's not. There's just really weird, bizarre stuff happening, and I like it. It's just it needed to happen. We were going several episodes with her just having flashbacks, and it was getting a little tiring. So I'm glad this
there was no real
and I'm glad it was fun. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, no, you're so right. Like it was really interesting to see this character who has been such an antagonist for the past year and a half get thrown back into the situation where they should feel most comfortable. This is like where, I mean, Georgiou should have just been, oh, thank God I'm back. I can go back to being like a cold, ruthless, horrible dictator. And instead she's like, actually, they were kind of awesome back there, so maybe we need to change my attitude.
That's going to be fun to watch.
I think so too.
I have, so, I mean, I'm being pretty effusive in my praise, but I also can't go an episode without knocking the writers. What is up with, they had to petition the Federation for euthanasia? Like, that's something that, like, we're petitioning our governments for now. Why are they still doing it in the future?
Wait, I missed something.
That one character at the very beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it was a throwaway line, but maybe it's just because they're writing in America and it's not happening in their actual ports there. And so I thought that was weird. And then when the Admiral was lecturing Saru about keeping his crew together, that is completely contrary to what he would...
Right? I mean, that was like everything that Vance has said so far in this season has been like, we need you here. How dare you discipline Michael for stepping out of line? And then he's like, well, you know, your crew is kind of looking up to you. Maybe you should just take a break and, you know, go to the edge of the galaxy. What the hell? Some consistency, please. So this is where the criticism of the episode comes back for me, because this is where it was very uneven, in that the character motivations are not the same in this episode as they have been for the past 8 episodes. I don't know what Steph, you've been watching this season, and I mean, like you said, TNG is your bae, and this is kind of a fun watch.
Yeah. I think I agree with you on that. Like, I definitely am like, oh, this Admiral character. Like, I always just decide, I'm like, oh, I don't like him. I'm not meant to like him. I don't like him. And then he did that, and I was like, what? I was like, hang on, like, is he from the mirror universe? Like, what is
we
this?
Can't do that again, can we? Yeah.
So I agree with you. I mean, I know that I think when I talked to you, Ron, I was like, cheese. This episode didn't have as much cheese as other episodes have. Like, that like revolving camera kissing that happened. Just like both me and my partner couldn't watch it. We were both like, ugh. That, but I don't know. Like, it feels like Burnham is, I don't know. It just feels inconsistent. It feels uneven to me.
Uneven.
Like the Burnham arc?
Yeah, the Burnham arc. Yeah, the Burnham arc.
She's a completely different character. And maybe that's intentionally, and maybe it's well executed, but she's a completely different character, right? She's this split, multiracial, multi-whatever dimensional kind of split between two worlds kind of thing. And then you get into the season 3, and she's just like happy and a fully animated human with a human upbringing, and it's not jarring because there's a context there, but it's really stark how her character just pivots on ahead from being so defined by one set of conflict to being now just like completely different. And I think they did it well as you could do, but it's just impossible not to remark there's nothing of the old Michael Burnham that exists in this new character. It's a reboot on the whole character.
Yeah.
Maybe for the better, but I'm just saying it's a reboot.
It is a reboot. And like, also, I want to acknowledge, as a Black woman, the hairstyles are off the chain in this season, and I love it. And I am distracted by that in a very good way. Yes, they are allowing her to change her hair as a Black woman would. Anyway.
Yes.
I've said it before on this podcast, and I'll say it again. There is going to be a doctoral thesis about the hairstyling for that character from season 1, that like, you know, she was so tight coiffed all the way to the long braids we have now. Like, you know, they're doing a lot of telegraphing with that and having fun.
Michael's hair tells us the journey of her character, and thus pathetic follicle / pathetic fallacy definitely still works in this situation.
That's a joke back to a previous episode. Sorry, Steph.
Yeah, that's like.
We coined the phrase "pathetic follicle" to refer to how Michael's hair is reflecting the mood of her character or the scene.
It's not pathetic. I mean, it is the best. I just mean her hair is telling us a story.
I actually could use a little bit of a fill-in on like what is the pathetic fallacy?
Pathetic fallacy is when the weather of a scene. It's not pathetic. You can say it's when the weather of a scene reflects the mood of the scene. So like when it's cloudy outside and all the characters are doomy and gloomy, that's a pathetic fallacy. I don't actually know what the etymology of that is, but it's just like a literary kind of thing. And so when your hair, it's a really bad pun. That's what it is. Terrible pun that we made up. And people who don't quite get the link are just like, wait, why is her hair pathetic? That doesn't make any sense. It's a literary thing, I promise.
How dare they? How dare they?
We don't live in judgment. It's just actually just like a literary thing. It's fine. It makes total sense.
I think the Sonequa Martin Green, the actor, is like, you know, this happens in every Star Trek. You know, they're like, she came out of the acting gates really strong, and made what I thought was going to be a super boring and uninteresting character really engaging. Like, we've seen the Vulcan thing before, right? Human Vulcan, great. But you know, she's done really well and like gotten into the role now. It's like a leather chair, and she's like this episode just shows like how comfortable she has gotten in playing within this character, which, you know, you love to see it because you know, Picard did it, Janeway did it, Cisco did it. By season 3, they're like pros at their role, and I really hope we get like another 4 of this character.
This is all beginning to feel like the beginning of Philippa's A Christmas Carol story. Does anyone get the feeling that we just saw her go through the Ghost of Christmas Present and Christmas Past, and we're about to see Ghost of Christmas Future come in here?
Yeah,
This would be perfectly timed for a Christmas episode, wouldn't it?
Do you think that they're doing that?
They couldn't. They wouldn't.
I do not want a Star Trek Christmas
special
episode
of Doctor Who.
Here's a better poll. Would we enjoy that? I actually think that would be kind of fun.
100%.
We did get the Thanksgiving episode.
So,
Yeah.
So this is the Christmas past. What would be the Christmas present? I guess it would be that she would get like be floating around on the current Star Trek Discovery, like the USS Discovery, like seeing how people act while she's like, where is she? She's on a mission? That would be weird. And then then they could visit that thing in the short treks. They could visit the one in the future where the AI has taken over the ship. That would be the Star Trek future. Oh.
Have you seen the short treks?
Love it.
Steph?
I have seen the short treks. I have a terrible memory. Anything I'm watching gets overwritten in my brain for some reason, so I can't remember anything that happens in the short treks.
Fair enough.
I would welcome, Shane, your proposal. If that happened, I would welcome it.
Love that.
Before we go into the break, my last thing on it is they teased Lorca all episode, and we did get Rekha Sharma in the background, even with a line reprising her role as Landry, but they did not give us Jason Isaacs. Why? Is he coming in the next episode or what? The guy who plays Lorca.
In the first season, the evil captain. I hope that he comes back, but honestly, he's so expensive. I'm sure that they're happy to just talk about him and not show him on screen.
Is he? I never heard of him before Star Trek, for what it's worth, so I didn't know that he was expensive.
He's Draco Malfoy's dad.
Who? Who?
Oh yeah.
They talk about him so much. I would be surprised if he doesn't show up in part 2. They talk about him so much in part 1.
Well, we'll find out very soon. That episode is going to air tomorrow for us.
Hey, it's a two-parter. This is actually not a bad way to format two-parters, is to have the podcast so close to each other, because now we can rip from one to the other.
That's very smart, Ravi.
This was definitely an accident. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe this is just the way we're doing things.
Aha, nothing is an accident. This is the Mirror Universe. We have talked so much about this episode. We have dealt with a lot of technical issues on my end, and we have a lot more to say. But let's take a very short break. We'll return with our commitment to reconciliation. Welcome back. Every week, we pick a different organization that makes a positive impact in their community, and we make a donation to them as part of our commitment to reconciliation. Last week, we supported Next Door Solutions to Domestic Violence. Braun, who are we focusing on today?
We're keeping it local this week and supporting Apple Grove Community Complex. Their mission statement is that they are a multi-service community organization in the Riverdale area neighborhood in Toronto. They've been there for 40 years. They're providing services that cover the whole age range from infants to seniors. You can donate. You can join us in donating directly, either through CanadaHelps.org or on their website, applegrovecc.ca. And there is a donation button there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we encourage everyone to engage with this cause and, donate what you can. And now we come to my favorite segment every week, where we get to ask our guest panelist, what the Trek? What to you, Steph, as a casual viewer of Discovery, made no sense, was morally questionable, or otherwise totally confusing about this episode, this series, or why not, even the whole franchise?
It's so wide open.
Yes.
Where to start? I actually, again, I have to remind you all that I have a terrible memory, so I didn't understand at the beginning of this episode why Georgiou was acting the way that she was. Like, I just glossed over, like, why is she just being so mean all the time? So I actually had to go back to season 1.
No.
Oh, I love the dedication. You went back?
I went back.
Wow.
Watch the episodes too. I was like, I can't be a complete fool on this.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, it would have been a different vibe if you had not known that.
Yeah, I didn't want you to have to explain all of this French.
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes we have fun with that. Yeah, no, she definitely is not the Georgiou from the first episode, and she is, I mean, some might say not even the Georgiou from the last episode.
Yeah. I think though it was helpful to go back, and it made much more sense, and even like the soup references, I was like, oh, okay. Anyway,
Wait, I gotta what the Trek that. What's the soup references?
well, they eat kelpians.
Oh, that
so,
soup reference, yes.
and she also dumps the soup on Tilly. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I wasn't talking about that soup, but yeah.
Okay.
I guess I didn't really, for the What of the Trek maybe that we can actually talk about, is like, I didn't understand the significance of the mirrored universe. And I guess because I don't have the context of the original series, where I think this mattered more to Trekkies than it does to little me and the TNG. I don't really understand why it matters that much. Maybe you can.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you. I don't know why they decided to lean on this like plot device so heavily. Like, it was in TNG. It seems to go maybe every other series. Like, sorry, it was in TOS. It was in Deep Space Nine. It was in Enterprise, but not every season, and not as a major plot device. It was like a fun, campy way to do the like Nazi episode, I guess. And they have really given it a lot of space in this series. I don't know the answer.
There was too much saluting. That was unnecessary. I was like, that was too much.
Yeah.
We understand they're terrible, but
I did like where I know they did a short trek on Tribbles, but to me the mirror universe is kind of like the equivalent of Tribbles, like a throwaway campy concept that doesn't really affect the big episode. And I'm wondering, like, does this mean we're going to go and dig through other campy stuff and introduce it as like major season arcs? Because like that I agree with the sort of like, why is this a thing? It was never a thing until now.
Didn't they try to do that with Harry Mudd? They
I
gave
guess
him like
so.
2 or 3 episodes in that first season of Discovery.
I didn't hate that either. That was a fun cameo. I appreciated that.
Oh, I hated those.
That was the Rainn Wilson character.
Yeah,
the time loop episode.
Yeah.
I just had a thought, and maybe it's just because they convinced Michelle Yeoh to stay. Like, I think maybe she signed up for season 1 thinking like, oh, this will be a fun thing, and then I'll move on to the next thing. But if I'm remembering correctly, it wasn't clear exactly how much she was going to be involved in the show. And since they booked, because she books, the writers were probably just like, well, we gotta keep her. We gotta keep doing stuff with this character.
We gotta find something fun to do.
We wrote her into the show, so maybe that's my best guess. I don't know.
I mean, my theory, and
that like there's really not planning that's going into.
Well, yeah. Sometimes it feels like every week they're like, "Oh God, okay, so it was due yesterday. What are we doing again?"
Oh shit, ratings are up. We got to do something. Yeah. Write something.
My theory, and one of the popular theories online, is that this is all kind of a backdoor pilot for Michelle Yeoh's new show, Section 31, a Star Trek spinoff. So that is one possible reason why this arc is happening. To go back to Steph's original kind of question about why this stuff is so important, I mean, in the original series, yeah, it was a one-off. In DS9, they kind of had a couple episodes that really furthered the idea of the mirror universe, and then Enterprise doesn't really deal with the mirror universe, or it does a few times if I remember correctly. But they deal a lot more with these temporal wars, and so I think they're trying to wrap the temporal wars and the mirror universe into one kind of storyline for Georgiou to send her off in a blaze of glory into her next TV show.
Okay.
Which, fine. And it gets even more confusing because they also reference the event that caused the Kelvin timeline, which is the movies.
Yes, that's canon now. Yeah. Steph just shrugged for all you listeners. Yeah, so I mean, the Star Trek reboot movies in 2009, that's kind of what we call the Kelvin universe, the ones with Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto. Yeah, and this episode just kind of said, yeah, we know about that, and we're all like, wait, how do you know about that? And they said, the temporal wars. Okay, yeah, sure. For this What the Trek segment, I'm asking What the Trek. So if anyone has any answers to this episode, please reach out to us at worsethantheborg@gmail.com.
I have another What the Trek.
Go for it.
Just in understanding now that, like, so is the new show of Michelle Yeoh gonna be Star Trek adjacent, or like?
Yeah. I mean, Section 31 is kind of like the Black Ops of Starfleet, and Michelle Yeoh's character, the mirror Georgiou, was the head of Section 31 secretly. And yeah, I don't know if this means that we're going back to that time where she was the head of them, or if we're going forward and she's going to be who knows? Who the hell knows?
But I think if that's the case, then what's going to happen to Michael Burnham's character? Because here's a Black woman perspective on this series, okay? We've got Michael Burnham, and she comes in and she's a castaway, right? She's a reject. She's done something terrible, and here she is. She's, dealing with her punishment and being demoted, and here she is on this ship, and she's the focus of this series. First Black woman captain comes in and she's illegitimate, and then they legitimize her. Okay, now she's first officer again. Great. Then she gets re-demoted again, right? In this latest story arc. Like, so what? Is she just going to be a throwaway character? I feel like this actually mirrors the real experience of Black women in real life, where they're like, you know, you've got all these other characters that can do basically no wrong. They just keep pinning things on her. I'm not into that.
And Star Trek's, they've done it before, you know, like they did it with Avery Brooks in Deep Space Nine. He was the first show like lead that wasn't a captain off the top. He was a commander for like 3 years and didn't get his promotion until later on. You know, and since we're like on the topic, the other Black leads in Star Trek right now is Lower Decks. And at the top of the show, you said you weren't a fan of Lower Decks either.
That's correct.
Is it for a similar reason?
Not really. I mean,
yeah.
You know, I'm used to not being representative in television.
Yeah.
But it just feels like, what? Like, I thought this was going to go somewhere and it was going to be centered around her, and she's so awesome, and it really has been. But to just go into this process of like, okay, now she's terrible, she's great, oh, she's terrible again, and then what? She's going to disappear? I don't know. That's disappointing.
Fair. I totally agree with you.
Truly what the Trek, and you know, this is another conversation we've been having on the show a lot about the kill your gaze, bury your gaze trope. You know, they did it to Stamets and Culber, and then they did it to Adira and Gray. You know, and they don't seem to be learning these lessons. You know, like we obviously are going to be looking at this stuff through those lenses, and they just keep doing it over and over and over again. It's not just this writing team; it's all of them. You know, like. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
But I'm still a nerd.
Do we have to start some kind of letter writing campaign to get them to write these characters properly and not make them heartbreaking all the time? Like, can't we just have goodness for, like, can't we just have a good storyline for Michael Burnham where she gets to win?
It's funny that you've mentioned letter writing campaigns, because such a powerful part of Star Trek's like development history, how many decisions have been reversed or whatever because of letter writing. And letter writing campaigns just feels like Twitter. Like, that's what it sounds like. Should we start a letter writing campaign? We have letter writing campaigns all the time. It's called Twitter. It's a disaster.
That's what you're saying, Ravi. I should get Twitter.
Well, I'm still on defense about that.
Yeah.
I mean, if Doug Jones follow you, maybe, but sure.
If you think you can deal with being a woman on the internet even more, then go for it. But you don't have to have the time.
Well, Steph, thank you so much for bringing that up. I think that is a super important point that we don't actually talk about enough on this podcast, is that, yeah, Michael Burnham deserves a better shake than she's been given on this show, because for once we've been given this awesome Black female lead, and she keeps getting thrown to the dogs. It's totally unfair, and yeah, we can do better. We can do better for Black women. So yeah, thanks again for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I mean, I do got to say, I appreciate that they made the nerds so mad by giving Spock's character development so heavily to Michael Burnham in, I think, a couple episodes ago.
Yes.
You know, he's like, you know, she made him the man. So, you know, Star Trek always has this like, you know, underwriting where they're trying to signal all of these good things. You know, like we always have the, oh my God, the half black, half white, the totally binary gender, race, you know, like they keep trying to get around this stuff. But then we end up with, you know, like they give us a great thing, like one of our most beloved characters owes who he is to a Black woman, but the fans don't actually get the payoff of that. It's just a throwaway comment.
Well, before we wrap up, I don't think we've really missed anything because we've talked about so much, but I'm going to give each of you one chance to share one note that we did not talk about. Ravi, you first.
Of course you're going to do that. Of course. I'm just going to shout out that I thought the plotting around like the assassination thing was so cool. And they had these like this play that unfolded like this Cirque du Soleil type thing in space. I actually didn't hate that at all. And I thought it was really cool, but it was sort of like, wait, they're in the mirror universe. They're cutthroat. Are they going to like really have time to come up with poetry, like really shabbily rhyming poetry?
Oh, it's fascist poetry. It's fascist plays for sure.
I thought they would have frowned upon that in the cutthroat mirror universe, but I thought it was a fun introduction. It was very dramatic. Lots of eyeliner, the whole thing.
I'm gonna tag on that and say that Mirror Stamets still the worst person in the universe. How about for you, Ron?
I want to give a shout out to the hairstylist again for when Yo goes through that door. I don't know if it's a wig or what, but that first look, that sharp angle up, very Trek. Also, I just love that we got Killy back.
Yes, and some Killy.
Is a lot of fun.
Captain Killy. So Captain perfect. Killy. And just to touch on Giorgio, we didn't even mention her Empress Sun Goddess outfit when she puts on the head. Did everyone's mind get blown in that moment? And particularly when the light from the ISS Charon was in the background, like shining right through it like an eye. Loved it. And Steph, how about for you?
I want to know what happened to that android that looked like an electric car. What happened?
Arium? Oh my gosh. We get I can't believe it. We get an Arium mentioned nearly every episode for a character who is so unimportant.
She's dead.
She dead. Yeah.
Anyway, I also really loved that. I definitely wrote in my notes on the episode that I took for this that I want that headpiece.
I mean, it was so gorgeous. The costuming this episode was prime.
Steph, I will fully support a Halloween costume on Church Street. If you want to do that full Empress look, I think it would be a showstopper on Church Street.
Well, I think we should just make a whole cohort of people dressed like the Mirror Universe. Like, how awesome would that be?
Oh, someone gets to walk around as Doug Jones, Saru, with the wavy arms. Oh, yes. Exactly.
I love those arms.
Oh, me too. I love Doug Jones. Steph, thanks so much once again for being our special guest this week. Do you want people to find you on social media?
Absolutely. I have everything locked right down, so you
love it.
Twitter.
Then thank you for being our super anonymous guest, Steph.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
I am Shane Came Back. That's Ron Sly and Ravi Yi Joshi, who just left us. You can follow us on Twitter at Worse Than Borg and at Worse Than the Borg on Instagram. You can email us at worsethantheborg@gmail.com. And please remember to subscribe and rate us 5 stars. As always, thank you for listening. We've been Worse Than the Borg, and you have been assimilated into our collective. But resistance is never futile. Wow, what an episode. Good night, everybody.